All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm here with a guest who has been on the show a lot of times. I think that I actually don't know the exact number, but you're getting into like the half dozen zone, I think, at this point,
Oh yeah,
in
yeah,
terms of
for sure.
appearances on the podcast. And then the first ones we did were way back when I was still, visiting people in person and, showing up people's houses or jam spaces or wherever else and doing interviews. And then you've
Hmm.
sort of continued to be a semi-regular guest on the show throughout the COVID era and the Zoom thing. And so it's always good to have you on the show. It's unfortunate that the timing on this one is because your band that we've been talking about so many times over the years is packing it in. So I think the best way to start this off is if you want to introduce yourself, give a bit of background about why you're here, what we're talking about, and we can sort of just launch into it.
For sure, yeah. I'm Ed Durocher from Apollo Suns, the band leader, guitar player, one of the principal songwriters. So yeah, we've been around for about 11 years, playing shows for 10 years. In that time, we've done, I think I counted at almost 800 shows and festivals, and in that time, and all across North America. And I've got to travel, and we've got to travel, and
Yeah.
did four EPs, a live album, and a full length and are going to be recording what is to be our last show, May 29th at the Park Theater. And we're going to be doing an 11-piece band. So we're going to have full horn section, lap steel, a couple guests, and two drummers and
Wow.
auxiliary. Because I figured since budget is not an issue for this show, and I'm not trying to save up or pay off debt with this show or do all the businessy type business stuff that people do. um that I was like, okay, let's do the show that I've always wanted to do, and where I didn't have to think about how much we could afford or how many players we could afford or all this. So yeah, we've decided, or I did, I made the decision, to the surprise of a couple and to not surprise of a couple other members, that yeah, I wanted to put it down for a little bit. I don't know if Apollo Suns will do anything, but I decided to give myself about a year to step back, the music from the music industry. Not playing, I'm still
Yeah.
playing a lot and working with other people and potential projects that might see the light of day. But after being in the music industry for 20 years, I'm kind of disgusted by the music industry, and I unfortunately, due to the a lot of different um changes in AI music and predatory practices, and even just the act of touring has become so hard. That it kind of grinds you down after a while.
Sure.
Even though, like, last year, we played maybe like 20 dates, which is our lowest we've ever played since we began our touring career. But we were making all right money. It was, it was a less is more type thing, and we'll give a quote and a fee, and if people or if promoters or festivals can match it or go for it, we'll do the show. But even when it was like getting better and the hotels were nicer and food was nicer, it was still a grind. Like,
Sure.
it's kind of wild. Everything's more expensive. You see bands touring, canceling tours, and I don't know. I think everything's just becoming a little bit, uh, you know, um, I saw a Rick Beato video. If you're not familiar with Rick Beato, he's like a music. He has a great YouTube channel. He
Yeah,
talks
very,
about,
very popular channel talking about all the music industry
yeah,
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
but he was okay. Just saying bye to my grandma, who lives with us. But we he did a great video of, like, you need, a lot of the times you need to be so wealthy and or rich kids with the connections, or just having the family member that can give you 100 grand,
Which most
or
people
like,
don't have anyone who can do that. I
yeah,
mean, that's like especially now.
yeah, or you have, the more I learned about, like, a lot of the people that are making it, quote unquote, have already a leg up.
Yeah. Oh, for
They
sure.
either have family members in the entertainment, they have people who are wealthy, or Taylor Swift's dad buys her a wing of the recording the record label that then puts out all of her music and all that
Yeah.
shit. So,
Well,
you know,
it's interesting you say some of this stuff too, and I'm not sorry to interrupt, but because I
yeah,
think a lot of people maybe in Winnipeg will see a band like Apollo Suns where you have been touring, you have released all these records, you seem like you are succeeding, and not to say that you weren't, but just that grind you're talking about is even bands at your level that seem like yeah you're doing good are still going through that. Like there's such a very thin line between
yeah.
succeeding and like starving, as an independent artist.
Yeah, and I mean, it was like for us, like we were getting paid a little bit, but like we all had day jobs still.
Sure.
Many of us had multiple jobs, and like for us, like okay, like we're 10 years in, we can try to keep going, and none of us are playing music fundamentally to become wealthy, but the amount of labor that goes into running any sort of business, as well as something in music where everyone feels entitled to it for free.
Totally.
The amount of labor that gets devalued and trivialized in music is kind of wild. But we would be opening up for bands who were playing like big halls and theaters across North America, like the Walker Theater of such and such city, and
Yeah.
even they still had, they were selling 2,000 tickets a night, and even they still had day jobs. So, like, I I think it's a part of the reality, and it's something that isn't talk. It's being talked about more now, but yeah, like the amount of labor that goes into like um running a band is just kind of like kind of wild. And at this point, like I've been touring for the entirety of my son's life up until now, and I was home maybe like 6 to 8 months out of the year.
Yeah.
But then gone 6 months out of a year, and still trying to be as present as I could be. And when I'm home, I'm super present.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
like, I was like looking down the barrel of like, okay, he's 8 now. He's going to be home for 10 years and he's always welcome. And I think that whole idea of bullshit of like the kid's got to leave at 18 and go do his own thing. No, like that's stupid. That's just a story we were told in order to buy more shit we didn't need. But I was looking down, like, do I want to spend the next 10 years of his life where at 18 or 19, he might go travel the world for a year or two and I won't see him? And this is such a good time to be home and like really focus on community and myself and my family. And so I just was like, nope. Even though it's beautiful and I love the festivals and I love the people and I got to meet some really fantastic humans, I was like, I could just kind of stay home and garden now, you know,
Yeah.
and
Well,
and
and
I
I
think
think
that's good too.
I think at your age too, I mean, this is something that a lot of people don't think about too when they start a band 10, 20 years ago, and they get to this point where they do have kids and they do have these other responsibilities that kind of necessarily take priority over playing music as much as you love it, as much as it would be great if you could do this forever, right? You have these things that
Yeah,
are more important, and I'm sure many of your bandmates do as well. And I guess kind of over the course of sort of seeing your band, grow and play these big shows and tour and things like that. I mean, you're sort of the constant in the band, right? You've had a lot of turnover as far as members, almost even from year
oh
to
yeah.
year, and you're just this one guy still plugging away and sort of seemingly running things in the whole like Apollo Sun's like the captain of the ship there.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had a lot of core members. Like Aaron Bartel was in the band for
Yeah,
7 or 8 years. Bryn Herperger was there for 5 years. Anatol's been there since the first tour. Tim Askirski has been about 4 years now. But man, horn players, oh my God, so hard to lock down because like and also like all the there are some great players in Winnipeg, there's tons, but like the horn players who are jazz studied, they're going to go out to Chicago, New York,
definitely.
like Montreal, Toronto, or go to the coast. And like as great as the scene in Winnipeg is, and there's great players and it's dope, there is a low ceiling here. Like you have to leave Winnipeg or you're cool, with being like you have your weekly gigs and you're playing around and you do the folk fest, you do the jazz fest,
Yeah.
and you do all the little street fest and all the little music in the park stuff, and you can make a living here as a musician. But like, there's 3 or 4 full-time drummers in Winnipeg, 3 or 4 full-time bass players, and everyone knows their names because they
Yeah.
get hired for the majority of stuff. And everyone else, you either got to wait for one of them to say, I'm out,
Yeah.
or I'm sick, or this or that. Because like everyone's gonna hire Kevin Waters, everyone's gonna hire Julian Bradford,
Yeah.
or the top 3 guys are like, like what is it, Mark John Barron or whichever. I always forget the order of the names, but but it's like,
The ones who have all the credits and everyone's records, it's the same
yeah,
people over and over again for a reason, right?
yeah. I mean they're great, and but then there's a lot of great players. So it's like, okay, with a city that's still close to 1 million people, but that's it.
Yeah.
There are no little suburbs. You have like the Chicagoland area, which Chicago proper is like what, like 2 million, but then you have all the cities around it, and same with New York.
Yeah.
Like Manhattan's this, but then you have all the boroughs and everything around it that you're like, okay, like, and like Toronto, you have the whole GTA,
And here it's just
so
Winnipeg. You got Winnipeg, and then you
it's
got to go
just Winnipeg.
5 hours down
And
the highway. Yeah.
and even then, people in the suburbs don't give a shit.
No, they don't
Like,
come downtown. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, they don't come downtown. They come downtown to brave the downtown fears for a Jets game.
Totally.
I
Totally.
mean,
Yeah.
like, so really the Winnipeg art scene, and there are people I know who are doing great work to try to like make Winnipeg like, hey, like suburbanites come down, there's cool stuff, and Winnipeg and downtown is not this scary place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's lots of cool stuff happening, but like, yeah, like there isn't there's a great art scene, but it's not like we have, and it's a thing with Canada in general. We have a huge country for 40 million people,
It's
and
tiny
and we're
population. Yeah.
actually losing population right now because of our horrible immigration policies that are being thrust upon us by a conservative liberal government. So now we're actually losing people. you know,
So
yeah.
what do you say then? I mean, if someone say someone's in a band that's been around for a year, right? They've seen your band, they've watched you play over the years. You seem like a successful band getting out of Winnipeg in the sense that you're touring and all this. What do you tell them now? What is this event where Apollo Sons is packing it in mean to the little guy who is even smaller than you, who's like looked up to what you're doing? I mean, I'm sure, like you said, you're not quitting music, you're not doing this because you don't want to play anymore. But I mean, is this discouraging to that guy's band that you're packing it in?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think any banned or anything should be discouraged by us calling it. It's not just the industry that did it,
Yeah,
or like in the industry as a whole. Like there are some really lovely people. I don't want to seem like I'm like, oh, everything's hopeless and all this. It's just, like I'm almost 40, and while I'm in the arguably some of the better shape of my life. Hello, that's my wife Jen. Hi, bye. Love you too. We like I could keep on touring, like realistically. I could keep on going, but for me as an artist, and I just want to like before I answer your question, just say like it's nothing to do with like how anyone else could do out there. It's like
yeah,
I am burnt out, I am tired, and I am creatively sapped. And my belief in Apollo at this point is like tenuous. It's going to be a great last show, and we're gonna like play our asses off. But like I need a break. But what I would tell a new artist or someone else, I mean, there's great new artists like Irvin Miller who's opening up for us. Oh
so
my
good,
god,
so good. Yeah, yeah,
so good. I am pumped for that kid. Like I'm just so excited to see what he does. And but what I would say is like, man, just like play for yourself, do it honestly. And like that's what I did when I first started. I really believed and loved and still do think that Apollo Suns was a force of joy and goodness, and an act of like resistance against the mundane. Like
yeah.
I really loved, and I still do, and I'm sure I will in the future once I've had a time to reflect, and as I move into the middle age of my life, be able to recontextualize what Apollo Suns might be in the future.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think
But
there's hours of you talking on this show about all of that. Like, I mean,
yeah,
you it's yeah,
so yeah, so what I would say is like that, be brutally honest about what you want to do with everyone in the band, and if you're a songwriter, be honest about what you can do, what you want to do, how much time you have, but
yeah,
also like and be smart, like we played a lot because and we overplayed. I made the mistake, like full transparency, we did 160 shows a year to really hammer it out, and some in some places that worked out really well. BC last year we're playing 5 to 6,000 person crowds. Like it was great.
that's awesome.
It was lovely. It took 10 years to get there, and a ton of debt and a ton of sweat and tears and joy and love and sweat and beautiful times and all the highs and lows of that. But like I think that it's like find ways to connect to an audience and like really play passionately and just give it everything, and then just be smart about the business stuff. Like would I say, hey, go play 100 tour dates and really pound the pavement? Maybe not. Fine, but like you do have to go out and play, because I think what I've kind of seen is like we've had about 15 years of social media and influencer and this like augmented reality of what success looks like and what this looks like, that I think it's good to play live. I
Yeah,
get turned off when a band is good in studio but sucks live. I'm like, you're not playing music at that point, you're playing a product.
for sure.
If you can't play live to me, you're not shit. As bad as that, I'm like, it even kind of bothers me when bands use tracks or use auto tune live. I'm like, no, that's pretty lame.
It is weird. Yeah, I think that I
It's lame to
mean,
me.
not that
It's
the
lame.
yeah, no, I agree with you. Not
Yeah.
that they're the same, but I mean, I definitely see similarities having done a podcast for as long as I have, which is probably a similar amount of time to how long Apollo was around, just
Oh
because
yeah.
you were on the show very early. And there's a lot of people who are doing the same thing I'm doing here, but they're doing it in order to become. They think they're going to become an influencer, or think they become famous, and you can
Uh,
tell by the entire presentation that this is not about actually the content. It's about the presentation. And I think there's a lot of bands,
yeah.
especially the way that music has gone now, in terms of like how it's consumed and how it's marketed and all that, who
Yeah.
are really more concerned about style than substance.
I think yes, and I try, like Irvin is a great example, and I'd be so choked if it wasn't true. But he seems so substantial
For
with
sure.
style as well. Where I see some bands coming up who I know, and like they see more style over. You're not saying anything. You're
No,
saying what, and it really bothers me now
you're
because I'm
speaking
like
to the
there.
algorithm. You're not speaking to the actual audience.
Yeah, and like there's so much garbage and plastic and formulaic and committee based and consultant based things, and like how is it going to play, or how's this, where I'm at the point even with myself, and it kind of, I let it happen in Apollo where I started doing things that I didn't quite believe in or think, but I didn't listen to my gut. I listened to other voices, and they might not have even been wrong, but for me it didn't feel right.
Yeah,
So so I think it's like, man, there's something that I really love about like the punk and the rock and roll, not rock, but rock and roll. Everyone forgets to roll when they're playing rock, like, so it's like there's something about like that. It's like just I don't know, just play and say something,
yeah,
and like and like it's not for everyone, and I don't think I would it's should be so dogmatic about it, but I'm like for me, and then like maybe I push that onto maybe I like like push that perspective, but like I think if you're not saying anything or challenging or really like challenging a narrative, or like really trying to create something special, then maybe you need to step back
yeah.
and take time, because man, there's so much garbage. There's so much slop. Oh
It's
my God.
crazy. It's crazy. Yeah,
It's crazy how much crap and I don't want to be a downer. There's tons of good stuff too, but the amount, because crap gets attention because people like to rage bait and
yep.
clickbait shit and slop, and like there is so much crap that I am just enjoying gardening, going to community stuff, going to concerts and cabarets and reading
Yep.
and taking time to really and taking time to slow down and really connect with the community and join like groups and get into organizations and join boards of community activism groups and all this stuff that I'm like, yeah, this shit makes sense. And now when I'm thinking about music, how can I bring that feeling to music now of like
Yeah.
if I'm gonna play more and if I'm gonna create another band or do this, how can it be in service of that? And not becoming famous or capitalizing or commodifying art. My God, I'm so sick of commodification of art forms. It's like you lost the point, you
Yep.
know, like the point of art is to challenge that,
For sure.
like
For sure.
for me anyway, my
I
God,
think you're
like
right. I think a lot of people, I mean, and regardless of what genre of music you play, I think a lot of people they seem to have missed out on like the key um period of being into punk rock as a teenager. Like that to me, that
yeah,
DIY-ness and that like just make the thing happen, whether you can do it or not, just do it, is something that I think a lot of people missed out on. And I'm not sure why, but I feel like being in the punk scene at like 13 or whatever, that hammered that super home with me. And I think a lot of people in the local music scene as well, you can sort of tell who came from that sort of background and has those values and stuff. It doesn't need to sound like punk rock, but that kind of
yeah,
aesthetic of it is really important, I think, for being able to be creative without worrying about what other people think and just having the
yeah.
permission to just do your shit however you want to do it. And I feel like you guys had that attitude despite being very far musically from punk rock. Although
Oh,
arguably there are elements of what you did that could
we
be seen as punk.
I referred to the band for a while as punks. We were like little punk shits, like Benjamin Hill, beautiful person, literally got arrested and in contempt of court for being a tree hugger out in BC and tying themselves to a tree to
Right.
stop a pipeline to protect old growth. How much more punk is that to literally put your body in front of this violent structure that is
Yeah.
destroying the world, like that is something I aspire to. I find Benjamin so incredibly inspiring because of what a good person they are, or like even though they make mistakes and they are human,
Yeah.
Benjamin is very for me inspiring, even though they're like 10 or 15 years younger than me, maybe only 10 years, but that to me, like that punk or that punk or DIY or whatever you want to call it, the non-conformist conforming, because everyone critiques punk is like, oh, they all look the same. I'm like, well, do they, or do you just not understand like the stylistic
Yeah.
minutia of, but that kind of like that vibe, that punk lifestyle, not so much music, or you don't have to wear spikes and a
Exactly.
mohawk or this or that to be a punk, like a crusty older like hippie folk who are homesteading and weaning themselves off the capitalist slop are punks to me, like
For sure
even
they are.
though
Yeah.
they don't listen to punk music, you wouldn't pick them out, but they are in small ways uncoupling themselves, and if they're joining community and mutual aid and doing
Yep.
the thing and like uncoupling, that is punk, like to me anyway,
I agree
for
with you.
whatever
Yeah.
that means.
Well,
Yeah.
neither side likes to admit it, but I think crust punks and hippies are like the same people. Just they
Oh
just
yeah,
listen to
totally.
one side listens to louder music. That's like the only difference. I
Yeah.
mean, they're
Now,
wearing
don't get me
the
wrong. Those hippy dippy, like, ooh, feel the vibration, and like that's fine. But if it's like, ooh, feel the vibration and let's do a bunch of acid and just talk about peace, but without actually doing anything,
right. It's
without being
the
active,
doing part, the
is
doing part.
bullshit.
Yeah, yeah,
I hate that crap. I
yeah.
hate that crap so much when they're like the raver kids, and then they don't do anything, and you're like, okay, so you're just like, oh great, so it's you're reactive, but you're not revolutionary. Like
Sure.
you're not like it's I hate sorry, like I'm challenging these things in myself now because I want to be a better human. So when I see it, when I'm like, oh man, you're like performative, like it's
That's
yeah,
the word
anyway.
for it. Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah,
just I mean, we could talk about this forever, but you have this show coming up. It is the
yes.
last, for now anyway, as far as anyone knows, Apollo Sun show. What are the details of the show? You got a massive band for this one?
Yeah, so we got an 11 piece. Everyone who's playing on stage with us has been a part of the story. So Ethan McKibben is flying in from Kelowna. He was our
Cool.
original drummer. So it'll be Tim Askerski and Ethan on drums. Erica Einerson's coming back to play percussion. It'll be a mix of all the Apollo Sun stuff. So like from the first album to some unreleased tracks that we've never played live that will
Cool.
be. Yeah, we're full horn section. Lloyd Peterson's going to be joining us on
Oh, cool.
lap steel, and Lloyd's been a part. He was part from the very beginning, and so yeah, it's going to be 11 piece at the Park Theater. Tickets are $22. We wanted to make it very affordable. Everyone was like, "Why don't you charge more? It's the last show." And like, no, that's not cool.
Yeah, that's not the point, right? You want people to be able to see it. You don't want people to be like
Yeah,
shut out from seeing it. Yeah, yeah,
and I'm sure even if they're a little more expensive, we would still pack the place. But I was like, no, like let's have it be everyone can get paid well while still only it being $22.
for sure.
Irvin Miller is going to be joining us
That's a great
as
fit,
an
I think. I
opening
think it's a
support.
really good
Yeah.
combination of artists. Yeah.
And I wanted to say we're going to be having some folks from Mutual Aid Society there. I'm currently working with them. So Mutual Aid is a community-run, volunteer-based group that started in the pandemic.
Yeah.
They are going to be there, and any donation to them will get you some free Apollo Suns merch. So
Cool.
yeah, get some merch, get it out of my basement, and the all the donations go to supporting mutual aid, helping us get resources to get more people. And mutual aid does not only is not exclusive to severe like unhoused people or this or that. Like, I've used mutual aid
Yeah.
because the it's getting harder, and it's a great way to foster community, meet your neighbors, connect with everyone, and it's citywide. So my house right now is a distribution hub. So I've
Nice.
handed out and coordinated packages to people. But so we're using the show to spread awareness about mutual aid, give a whole spiel at the show and all that. And then whoever buys Apollo Suns merch, we're going to be donating that to the West Broadway Community Center, also known as
Nice.
Broadway Neighborhood Center. They do a ton of work with youth. They run a great summer camp. My son uses it. They do a ton of workshops there. They do a ton of community outreach, working with harm prevention,
Yeah.
actual harm prevention, not the cops exclusively. So I think that if any way that we can support the community and actually support, because I think that we support us and we keep us safe. So
Yeah.
yeah, so we're going to be using the Apollo Sun show to kind of raise funds and help different community groups as well. So that's it. May 29th at the Park Theater. Yeah, I think it's going to be really lovely. We've been rehearsing for a little bit, and yeah, I'm really excited. It's funny. There's times where like we'll be rehearsing, I'm like, man, maybe I don't need to put it down. But then it's like, that love of music is still there. But it's like, no, I need to step away from the business of it just to like reconnect with like what it is I want to say or
Yeah.
do next. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure. So quickly before we run out of time here, with this being the last show, someone could hear this because I do this show apparently forever. Someone could hear this 10 years from now, and maybe Apollo Suns is still dormant at that point. Maybe you're back. Who knows? But what's the best way to find your music? Whether it's next week or a decade from now, when apparently I'm still doing this podcast because I can't stop.
We're on what are we on? We're on Bandcamp. It's always going to be on Bandcamp,
Yeah.
but I've started removing all of our music from Spotify, iTunes, all the streamers. Bandcamp is free. We
Yeah.
don't make money from you listening, but there is a way that you can support the band. You can buy albums there. It goes to us outside
Yeah.
of like a small cut that Bandcamp takes. But I wanted to remove our stuff from Spotify and all those streamers. I know it's not going to make a huge impact, but Jeff Bezos doesn't deserve our shit. Whatever his name is, Daniel Ek can go F
Yeah. Yeah.
himself for
Yeah.
all, you know. So, yeah. So, YouTube, you can find that the Apollo Sun's website is now down.
Okay.
I've like because it, but yeah, I'm just slowly removing but we're always gonna have Instagram and Facebook. I use the Apollo Suns Instagram page to share, community news or cool bands
Yeah.
I like, or hey, if this is a good, here's a good take on this, like, so yeah, we're always gonna be around. Maybe when I have a new band or if Apollo Suns ever does come back, we'll keep doing stuff there.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.